For nearly 2,000 years, a wall has marched across the spine of northern England, built by soldiers who would never see Rome again, engineered with a precision that would astound the modern world. In 1936, when British military engineers arrived to survey this ancient frontier, they discovered something that would shake their understanding of what was possible without modern tools. Their field journals, preserved in the archives of English heritage, record genuine shock at Roman engineering precision. How did men with string and determination achieve what modern instruments could barely match? The answer lies in the stones themselves and in the hands that placed them nearly 2 millennia ago. Dawn breaks cold over the northern English moorland. Mist clings to the valley floors, and through it, the dark line of Hadrian's Wall emerges like the spine of some ancient beast. The stones catch the first light, each one fitted so precisely that no blade could slip between them. A curlew calls, lonely and wild. This is the edge of what was once the Roman world. Beyond lie the Caledonian highlands where Rome's legions never conquered. Here, they built instead. The wall runs 73 miles from the River Tyne in the east to the Solway Firth in the west, marching straight across hills and valleys with mathematical precision. From above, it resembles a surveyor's line drawn across the landscape by some confident hand. But this was no quick sketch. This wall took 6 years and 15,000 men to build. And when British Royal Engineers measured it in the 1930s with theodolites and optical instruments, they found gradients calculated to fractions of a degree, foundations perfectly matched to soil conditions, and stonework that would challenge modern masons. One surveyor wrote in his field journal, "The precision is extraordinary. These Romans achieved with groma and string what we struggle to match with optical instruments. How did they do it?" That question echoes across centuries. To answer it, we must return to Rome in the year 121, to an emperor returning from the eastern provinces with a radical new vision for his empire's future. The imperial palace in Rome glows golden in the afternoon sun. In a columned hall, where light and shadow play across marble floors, Emperor Hadrian stands before a massive map of the empire. He's in his mid-40s, bearded in the Greek fashion he favors, his eyes sharp with intelligence and something harder, weariness perhaps. 20 years of warfare have taught him that conquest has limits. The empire has grown too vast to defend everywhere at once. The eastern campaigns drain resources. The Danube frontier consumes legions. And Britannia, that fog-wrapped island at the world's edge, remains a wound that will not heal. Reports from the northern frontier lie scattered across the table. Caledonian raids, settlements burned, legionaries ambushed in the forests beyond. The Tyne. The 9th Legion, once stationed in the north, has vanished from the record, its fate debated in whispers. The traditional Roman response would be punitive expedition, pushing deeper into the highlands, extending the roads, building forts ever northward. But Hadrian has seen too many victories that solved nothing, too many conquered peoples who refused to stay conquered. He places his hand flat on the map where Britannia narrows between two seas. His voice, when he speaks, carries the certainty of a man who has made a decision that will outlast him. We will build a wall from sea to sea, not to conquer the north, but to contain it. Let the frontier be fixed, and let Rome's strength be clear to any who look upon it. His advisors shift uncomfortably. The expense will be enormous, the engineering challenge unprecedented, but Hadrian has built his way across the empire. The Pantheon stands in Rome with its impossible dome. Aqueducts carry water across valleys. His villa at Tiber recreates the architectural wonders of the world. He understands that stone and engineering make statements that legions cannot. A wall, properly built, declares that Rome chooses where its world ends. It is control made visible. Within weeks, orders travel north. 3 legions receive their commands. The 2nd Augusta, veterans of the conquest of Wales. The 6th Victrix, recently arrived from Germania. The 20th Valeria Victrix, blooded in the suppression of the Boudiccan revolt. Each legion carries approximately 5,000 men. Among them, the Fabri, the military engineers, whose skills will transform imperial ambition into 73 miles of stone. Spring arrives in Britannia with cold rain and gray skies. At the port of Eboracum, modern York, the legions assemble. The docks are chaos, the organized chaos of Roman military logistics. Ships unload equipment, tools, supplies, wooden crates filled with surveying instruments, iron tools wrapped in oiled cloth, amphorae of wine and oil, sacks of grain. The detritus of war and construction mixed together, because for Rome, they are the same thing. Among the arriving soldiers walks the chief architectus, though that is not how he would introduce himself. He carries no banner, wears no special insignia. His armor is dusty from travel. His hands are scarred from decades of work before promotion elevated him to command. He is in his mid-40s, old for a soldier, young for a man who will orchestrate the greatest engineering project Britannia has ever seen. His eyes move constantly, measuring distances, assessing terrain, calculating. Even standing still, he calculates. Behind him, the veteran Fabri moves with the economy of motion that comes from 20 years of military service. He is Gallic by birth, Roman by choice and training. His arms are thick with muscle, his hands are tools themselves shaped by stonework. He carries his kit with practiced ease, the leather bag containing chisels, measuring cords, plumb lines, the instruments of his craft. He has built roads in Germania, bridges in Gaul, fortifications in Dacia. He has never built a wall that stretched from sea to sea. No one has. The young surveyor stumbles slightly under the weight of his pack. He is still learning the difference between theoretical engineering and the mud and weight of actual construction. His hands are ink-stained. His kit includes scrolls of Vitruvius, the great Roman architectural theorist. He can calculate gradients in his head, can work out the volumes of stone needed for any given section of wall. What he cannot yet do is understand the looks the veteran soldiers give him, the mixture of amusement and assessment. He will have to prove himself in ways the academy never prepared him for. Among the common legionaries, one young man from Hispania sets down his pack with relief. His back aches. His hands are already rough from the voyage, from pulling ropes, from the 1,000 small labors that fill a soldier's day. He joined the legions for citizenship, for pay, for escape from a drought-stricken farm. He did not join to build walls in the rain, but here he is, and here he will stay for the next 6 years if he survives them. His name will not be recorded. His work will outlast empires. The chief architectus calls his senior engineers to conference that first evening. They gather in a requisitioned building, maps spread across tables, oil lamps fighting the northern twilight. The room smells of wet wool and lamp smoke. The engineers are silent, waiting. The chief architectus does not rush. He smooths the map with those scarred hands, tracing the proposed route with one finger. 73 miles, he says quietly. From Wall's End to Bonus on Solway, the wall will stand 15 feet high, 10 feet wide. Mile castles every Roman mile, turrets every third of a mile between them, forts at intervals, a military road behind for supply and communication, a ditch system to the south. He pauses, lets the scale sink in. This will require approximately 24 million stones. The foundations alone will consume enough labor to build a city. We have 6 years. One of the junior engineers makes a small sound, quickly suppressed. The veteran Fabri, present because his expertise has earned him a place at these councils, speaks into the silence. The northern stone is good, hard, cuts clean, but the quarries are scattered. Transport will be the bottleneck. The chief architectus nods. We will build roads to the quarries before we build the wall. Legion 20 will begin that immediately. Legion 2 will establish the western sections. Legion 6 takes the east. Each legion divides into centuries. Each century takes responsibility for specific lengths. Competition between units will drive quality and speed. The young surveyor unfurls a scroll covered in calculations. The gradient must be consistent for water drainage. Even a small error compounds over miles. We need primary. Survey posts set every mile, secondary marks every 100 feet. The Groma teams must work with absolute precision. They will, the chief architectus says, and his tone makes it not prediction, but command. He knows what hangs on this, not just his career, though that matters. Not just Hadrian's vision, though that matters more, but something deeper, the knowledge that when you build something this permanent, every error is immortalized. Precision is not perfectionism, it is duty. That night, the common legionary lies in his barracks, listening to rain drum on the roof. Around him, men sleep or pretend to sleep. Tomorrow they march north to the wall line, to the edge of empire, to work that will break some of them and transform others. He thinks of home, of Spain's dry heat, so different from this wet cold. He thinks of the money he sends back, of the citizenship that will come if he survives his 25 years. He does not think of legacy or history. He thinks of getting through tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. In another building, the veteran Fabri oils his tools, a ritual that soothes him. He checks each chisel's edge, sharpens where needed, wraps them carefully. These tools are extensions of his hands. With them, he can shape stone to tolerances most men cannot achieve. He has trained dozens of young masons, taught them that stone responds to patience, that hurrying produces cracks and failures. He knows that this wall will outlast his name. The thought gives him peace. Let his name fade. Let the stones speak. The young surveyor sits up late, rechecking his calculations by lamplight. The mathematics are beautiful, pure, perfect. The reality waiting outside in the mud and rain and hills of northern Britannia will test whether mathematics alone can build a wall. He feels the weight of responsibility and possibility. He is young enough to believe in perfection, old enough to fear failure. He does not yet know that both belief and fear will shape him into the engineer he will become. The chief architectus does not sleep. He stands at a window, looking north into darkness. Somewhere out there, 73 miles of wall wait to be built. He has supervised bridges, aqueducts, roads, fortifications. He has never attempted anything this vast. The emperor's expectations are absolute. The available time is fixed. The resources, while substantial, are not unlimited. Between those constraints, he must create something that will justify the lives it will cost, the treasure it will consume. He thinks of Vitruvius's principles: firmitas, utilitas, venustas, strength, utility, beauty. The wall must possess all three. Anything less is failure. Dawn comes cold and gray. The legions form up for the march north. 15,000 men in column, their armor and equipment creating a river of sound, iron on leather, footsteps on stone, the low murmur of voices. They march out of Eboracum along roads their predecessors built 80 years ago during the initial conquest. The roads are straight, well-drained, engineered for the rapid movement of armies. They are also lessons in what Rome expects from its builders. These roads have lasted 8 decades with minimal maintenance. The wall must last longer. The landscape changes as they move north. Civilized farmland gives way to wilder country. Roman villas and settlements become sparser. The hills grow steeper, the forests thicker. This is the frontier, where Rome's order fades into the chaos beyond. The legionaries march in silence, each man alone with his thoughts, each man part of the machine. They reach the proposed wall line in stages over several days. The surveyors arrive first, with their gromas and measuring rods, their plumb lines and water levels. They begin the meticulous work of marking the route. Every mile, they plant a post. Between posts, they stretch cords, checking that the line runs true. The work is painstaking, precise, mathematical. Get it wrong here, in the survey, and every error magnifies over distance. The wall could curve when it should run straight, rise when it should stay level, drain toward the interior when water must flow away. The young surveyor leads one survey team. He plants the groma, the crossed wooden arms topped with plumb lines, checking that it stands perfectly vertical. Through its sighting arms, he aligns posts over impossible distances, trusting geometry and careful measurement. The wind buffets the plumb lines. Rain makes everything slippery. His hands grow numb with cold, but the measurements must be exact. He checks and rechecks, driving his team to verify every mark. The veteran soldiers in his team watch him with something approaching respect. The boy can calculate, yes, but he is also willing to freeze in the rain until the numbers are right. The veteran Fabri walks the proposed route with the chief architectus, examining the stone outcroppings, assessing the terrain. His trained eye sees what the maps cannot show, the places where bedrock lies close to the surface, where foundations will be easy, where deeper digging will be required. He points to a ridge of hard volcanic rock, the wind sill, where the wall will follow a natural escarpment. There, he says, the wall follows the high ground, defensively perfect, but the stone. Look at the stone. He kneels, runs his hand over exposed rock. This is hard stone, slow to cut. We will need more men on these sections. The chief architectus makes notes on his wax tablet. Every observation matters. Every detail feeds into the master plan taking shape in his mind. The choreography of 15,000 men, the logistics of stone and mortar and time. By late spring, the survey is complete. 73 miles marked with posts and cords, the line running straight as human skill can make it. Now comes the test. Now comes the building. The chief architectus gives the order, and across the length of the future wall, men begin to dig. The Shrey, common legionary, swings his pick into the earth, breaking ground for the foundations. Around him, his century does the same. The rhythm is hypnotic, numbing. Swing, strike, lift. Swing, strike, lift. The work destroys hands, breaks backs, numbs minds. But the trench grows, 3 feet deep, the width specified by the engineers. Other men shovel out the loosened earth, carry it away in baskets. The work is brutal, monotonous, essential. Without foundations, walls crumble. Everyone knows this. So they dig. Summer arrives, and with it, the first stones. Quarry gangs extract massive blocks from sites scattered across the region. Transport teams move them on wooden carts, on sledges, on the backs of cursing men. The roads built specifically for this purpose fill with traffic. Dust rises in dry weather. Mud sucks at wheels when it rains. But the stone moves, slowly, inexorably, toward the wall line. The veteran Fabri teaches his century the art of stone dressing. He demonstrates the technique, his hands moving with practiced certainty. Strike here, at this angle, and the stone fractures clean. Strike there, too hard, and it shatters uselessly. He shows them how to use the chisel to create flat surfaces, how to test with a straight edge, how to know when a stone is ready. Most will never match his skill. A few will surpass him eventually. All will learn enough to build a wall that lasts. As summer deepens, the wall begins to rise. Foundation trenches are filled with mortar, the pavimentum layer that will support everything above. Then, the first course of stones, massive blocks carefully positioned. The veteran Fabri checks each one with his labella, the water level that ensures perfect horizontal alignment. If a stone rocks, even slightly, it comes out and the bed is reworked. There is no hurry so great that precision can be sacrificed. This is the lesson beaten into every man. Good enough is not good enough. Excellent is minimum standard. The chief architectus walks the length of the construction, his eyes missing nothing. Here, a section where the mortar is too wet. There, stones not quite flush. He does not shout, does not rage. He simply points, says quietly, "Again." The word falls like judgment. The section is dismantled, rebuilt, checked. He walks on. Behind him, men work harder, knowing his eye will return. By autumn, sections of wall stand 10 feet high. From certain vantage points, you can see the future, see how the wall will march across the landscape, dividing the world. The legionaries begin to feel it, the pride of creation mixing with exhaustion. They compete between centuries, each wanting their section to be the finest. Centurial stones are carved, marking which unit built which length. It is accountability and pride made permanent. The British quarryman watches from a distance, this Briton of the Brigantes tribe who has lived 60 years under Roman rule. He sees his people's land being divided by foreign stone. He also sees craftsmanship that commands respect. When the Romans need advice on local stone types, he provides it, speaking Latin with a thick accent, his words economical. He shows them the seams where stone splits clean, the layers to avoid. He does this for pay, for survival, and perhaps for something else. The craftsman's need to see good work done, even in service of occupation. The wall takes shape through autumn's shortening days. Mile castles rise at measured intervals, small forts that will house patrols. Turrets appear between them, observation posts commanding views north and south. The military way, the road running behind the wall, facilitates communication and supply. The system becomes visible, not just a wall, but an integrated frontier mechanism. The young surveyor, checking measurements at a completed mile castle, experiences a moment of revelation. The numbers on his scrolls have become stone and mortar. Theory has become reality. He places his hand on the wall, feels the solidity, the permanence. His calculations worked. The wall stands level and true. For the first time, he understands what the veteran Fabry already knows, that engineering is not abstract but physical. Not thought but made real through labor and precision. As autumn turns toward winter, a sense of achievement spreads through the legions. The impossible is becoming possible. The wall rises steadily. Work proceeds on schedule. Hadrian's vision approaches reality. Men begin to believe they will finish, that 6 years is enough, that precision and speed can coexist. Then winter arrives in earnest, and everything changes. The first snow falls on a December morning, soft and deceptive. By afternoon, it has become a blizzard. Wind screams across the open moorland, driving ice crystals horizontal, turning the world white and blind. The partially built wall offers no shelter. Men huddle in whatever lee they can find, wrapped in sodden cloaks that freeze stiff. The temperature plummets. Mortar that was mixed at dawn has frozen solid by midday, useless as gravel. Tools stick to hands, tearing skin. Breath freezes in beards. This is northern Britannia in winter, and it does not care about imperial schedules or engineering precision. The chief architectus stands in what will become the headquarters at Vindolanda, staring at reports that all say the same thing. Construction has stopped. The men cannot work in these conditions. The mortar will not set. The engineers recommend suspending operations until spring. He reads each report carefully, then sets them aside. Hadrian's orders were explicit. 6 years. The wall must be complete in 6 years. Stopping for winter means losing 4 months, perhaps 5. That time cannot be recovered. He calls his senior engineers to conference. They gather in a room heated by a central brazier that does little against the cold seeping through every gap in the walls. The chief architectus spreads his hands to the meager warmth. "We continue," he says, simply. The young surveyor speaks, hesitant. "The mortar freezes before it sets. We are building sections that will fail come spring." "Then we change the mortar," the chief architectus replies. "More lime, less water. Mix it hot, build wooden shelters over the work sites." He looks at each man in turn. The emperor did not say build a wall in fair weather. He said build a wall. We find solutions or we fail. I will not report failure. The veteran Fabry, present because his practical knowledge matters more than rank, nods slowly. "We can prepare stones indoors, dress them in heated workshops, stockpile them. When weather allows brief work, we build with prepared materials. Slower, but the quality holds." "Yes," the chief architectus says, "precisely that, we adapt. We do not surrender." The word passes down through the ranks. Construction continues. The legionaries receive the order with grim acceptance. This is the Roman way. You do not stop because conditions are hard. You find methods to work within the hardness. Workshops are established in the emerging forts. Fires burn constantly, heating the spaces where stone can be dressed despite the weather outside. The cost in firewood is enormous. The alternative is failure. The common legionary draws workshop duty and considers it fortune. Inside, at least, his hands can feel his tools. The work is still brutal, still monotonous, but he is not freezing in the open wind. He learns to dress stone by firelight, the shadows making the work harder, but the warmth making it possible. Around him, other men work in exhausted silence. Sometimes someone speaks, a joke, a complaint, a memory of home. Mostly they work quietly, conserving energy for the labor itself. Outside, when the weather breaks for a few hours, construction teams rush to lay prepared stones. They work with desperate speed, knowing the window will close. The veteran Fabri oversees his century, moving between work sites, checking each stone's placement even as his fingers stiffen with cold. His breath comes in frozen clouds. His joints ache with accumulated cold, but his hands remain steady. A stone misplaced in haste will haunt the wall forever. He will not allow it. The young surveyor learns a lesson no academy taught. Theory encounters reality, and reality wins. His calculations assumed optimal conditions. They did not account for frost-shattering stones overnight, for wind-making plumb lines useless, for the simple fact that frozen men work slower and make mistakes. He revises everything, building in margins for weather, for human limitation, for the 1,000 variables that exist outside mathematics. It is humbling and necessary. January brings illness. The legion medicus, a Greek freedman serving Rome through medical skill, watches his hospital fill with men suffering from exposure, from frostbite, from the fevers that come when bodies are pushed beyond endurance. He moves between beds, doing what he can, which is often not enough. The herbs and poultices he learned in Alexandria are inadequate against northern cold and exhaustion. Men die quietly in the night, their bodies added to the count of what this wall costs. One death haunts the veteran Fabri, a young legionary from Gaul, barely 20, who reminded him of his own younger self. The boy had promise, a good eye for stone, strong hands, willing spirit. He caught fever after a week working in freezing rain. The illness settled in his lungs. The medicus tried everything. The boy died on a February morning, calling for his mother in Celtic his comrades could not understand. They buried him beside the wall he helped build. No marker, no name preserved, just another body in the British earth. The veteran Fabri returns to work the next day because there is no alternative. He shapes stone with particular care, as if quality can be offering or memorial. His hands move through familiar patterns while his mind circles the same questions. What are they building? A wall for Rome's glory, yes. A frontier to contain the northern tribes, yes. But also a monument to how many dead? How much suffering can be justified by straight lines and precise masonry? He does not speak these thoughts. Roman soldiers do not question orders. But the thoughts persist, cold as the wind that never stops. Winter stretches endlessly. The legionaries mark time by small victories, a day when construction proceeds for 3 full hours before weather stops them, a week when no one dies in the hospital, a morning when the sun appears briefly, weak and pale, but present. These become reasons to continue. Not glory, not honor, not even duty in the abstract. Simply the next task and the one after that, until eventually winter must end because all things end. The chief architectus sleeps poorly when he sleeps at all. His mind runs calculations constantly. Man-hours lost to weather, materials consumed, progress against timeline. The mathematics are unforgiving. They are falling behind schedule. Not catastrophically, not yet, but the deficit accumulates. He considers options. More men, but there are no more men. Longer work hours, but exhausted men make mistakes. Lower standards, but that thought dies unspoken. Standards are not negotiable. Precision is the foundation of everything. Without it, they are simply piling stones. He makes one decision that will echo through history. Where stone is insufficient, they will use turf sections temporarily. Turf can be cut and stacked even in cold weather. The sections will be replaced with stone later, when time and resources allow. It is pragmatism over perfection, but pragmatism that maintains the wall's function. A turf wall still divides the frontier. It can be improved later. This is Roman engineering, not rigid dogma, but flexible problem-solving within fixed principles. March arrives with the first thaw. Ice melts, streams run high with snowmelt. The ground, frozen solid for months, turns to mud. New problems replace old ones. Foundations dug in winter now fill with water. Drainage systems must be carved through near-frozen earth, but men can work full days again. Hands regain feeling, breath no longer freezes. The legion emerges from winter like survivors of battle, diminished but intact. Construction accelerates with spring's arrival. The lessons of winter have been learned. The legionaries work with new efficiency, movements honed by months of repetition. Stones fit together faster, more precisely. The competitive spirit between centuries, dampened by winter's shared misery, reignites. Each unit wants their section to be finest. Centurions drive their men hard, but also with new understanding of limits. Winter taught everyone where the edge of endurance lies. The wall rises rapidly through April and May. Sections that stood 10 feet high in autumn reach 15 feet by early summer. Mile castles are completed and garrisoned. Turrets begin operation, soldiers scanning the northern wilderness for threats. The military way improves, facilitating faster supply movement. The system becomes functional even as construction continues. The wall's not finished, but it is working. The young surveyor, checking completed sections against original specifications, experiences professional pride mixed with surprise. The measurements hold. Despite winter, despite improvisation, despite everything, the wall runs true. Gradients are within tolerances, heights are consistent, the foundations are sound, theory survived contact with brutal reality. He makes notes for a treatise he will never write, observations about cold weather construction that will die with him, but live in the stones. Summer brings Hadrian himself. Word arrives a week before the emperor, sending the frontier into controlled chaos. Everything must be perfect. Completed sections are cleaned, repairs made to any damage, approaches cleared. The chief architectus inspects obsessively, finding flaws invisible to anyone else, demanding corrections. This is not merely career concern, though his career hangs on imperial judgment. This is about the work itself, about ensuring that what the emperor sees reflects what they have actually achieved. Hadrian arrives on a bright June morning. He does not come with excessive ceremony, though guards accompany him and officers attend. He comes as an engineer coming to inspect engineering. The chief architectus greets him with proper deference and contained anxiety. The emperor's first words are a question. "Show me how you calculated the gradients." For 2 days, Hadrian walks the wall, questioning engineers about methods, examining stonework, climbing to ramparts to study sightlines. He is genuinely interested, intellectually engaged, his mind sharp and demanding. He challenges assumptions, proposes alternatives, identifies inefficiencies. He is also impressed, visibly so, by the scale of achievement. 73 miles of frontier transformed in barely 3 years. He sees the precision, the standardization, the systematic organization of massive labor. At Banna Fort, standing on completed ramparts with the northern wilderness stretching beyond, Hadrian makes a decision. The wall should be higher, another 5 feet, and a ditch system to the south, the vallum, for additional security and clear territorial demarcation. The engineers receive this with internal dismay and outward acceptance. More height means more stone, more labor, more time. But the emperor has spoken. Hadrian also offers rare praise. "You have built something that will outlast empires," he tells the assembled officers and engineers. "Future generations will look at this wall and know that Rome was capable of anything it willed into being. Let no one say the frontier cannot be held. You are holding it in stone." The chief architectus feels something release in his chest, a pressure he did not fully acknowledge until it eased. Validation matters. The emperor's words will carry back to Rome, will be recorded, will justify the dead and the suffering and the endless brutal work. He allows himself, briefly, to feel pride. The legionaries, granted a day's rest and extra wine ration in the emperor's honor, celebrate with the restrained enthusiasm of men too tired for excess. They have impressed Hadrian himself. They have proven they can do the impossible. Tomorrow they will return to work, but tonight they are men who have achieved something worthy of record, even if their individual names will never be recorded. The veteran Fabri spends the celebration evening maintaining his tools, his ritual unchanged by imperial visits. The wall is good work. He knew that before the emperor confirmed it. The stone will speak when Hadrian is dust. That is enough. Through late summer and autumn, the wall continues to rise. The additional height Hadrian ordered requires more material, more labor, but the systems are refined now, efficient. Quarries produce stone steadily, transport operates smoothly. Construction proceeds with rhythm born of practice. The 15,000 men function as a single organism, each part knowing its role, the whole creating something no individual could imagine. By late autumn of the year 124, substantial portions of wall stand complete to full height. Mile castles are garrisoned and operational. Turrets provide continuous observation. The vallum ditch system is well advanced. Forts at major intervals house permanent garrisons. The frontier is becoming what Hadrian envisioned, a clear demarcation between Roman order and the chaos beyond. Life along the wall develops its own rhythms. Traders establish themselves near the forts, selling supplies and luxuries to soldiers with pay to spend. Local Britons find employment with the Romans, learning their language and methods. Children are born who will know nothing but the wall's shadow. A new culture emerges, neither fully Roman nor fully British, but something created by the frontier itself. The common legionary, now a veteran of 4 years' construction, no longer thinks constantly of home. The wall is his world, his century, his family, the daily labor, his life. He sends money to Spain still, dutifully, but the family there grows abstract in his mind. The reality is stone and mortar, the men beside him, the satisfaction of completed work. He has become what Rome makes of all its soldiers, a man shaped by service into something both less and more than he was. But the wall, for all its growing strength, has not yet been tested. It has been built to contain war, but war has not yet arrived to test whether stone and organization can achieve what legions could not. That test comes in spring. The Caledonian tribes have watched the wall's construction with varying reactions. Some leaders argued for immediate attack while the defenses were incomplete. Others counseled patience, watching to understand this Roman project. By spring of 125, as the wall nears completion, the decision is made. They will test it. The attack comes at dawn, at a section near Bana where the wall is complete, but the garrison is still establishing itself. Warriors emerge from the northern forests in disciplined silence, reaching the wall before alarm can be raised. They carry scaling ladders, ropes, grappling hooks. They have studied Roman construction and planned accordingly. The first indication is a shout from a turret watchman, cut off abruptly. Then chaos. Warriors swarm up ladders against the wall. The small garrison, caught sleeping, scrambles to defense. Horns sound, calling reinforcements from neighboring mile castles. The wall's design is being tested exactly as intended, and for desperate minutes, the outcome is uncertain. The legionaries fight from the ramparts, hurling stones, thrusting with pilia, engaging in the brutal close combat that favors neither side entirely. The Caledonian warriors are fierce, well-armed, motivated by anger at the wall's existence. The Roman soldiers are trained, disciplined, fighting from the high ground their engineers provided. The battle is savage and short. Reinforcements arrive from east and west, running along the military way, the road built precisely for this purpose. The attacking warriors, faced with growing numbers and unable to breach the wall's height, withdraw with their wounded and dead. The Romans do not pursue beyond sight of the wall. This is defensive warfare. The wall defines the limit of their responsibility. In the aftermath, the cost becomes clear. 7 Romans dead, 15 wounded, some seriously. The enemy casualties are unknown, but blood on the approaches tells its story. More concerning are the physical damages, stones displaced by grappling hooks. A section of parapet collapsed where too many men fought in too small a space, the gate of one mile castle damaged by attempted battering. The wall held, but it bled. The chief architectus surveys the damage with grim satisfaction mixed with concern. The wall functioned as designed. The height prevented easy scaling. The garrison, though surprised, held until reinforcements arrived. The integrated system worked. But repairs are needed, and the attack proves that the wall will face constant testing. This is not just an engineering project. This is active military infrastructure that must be maintained, improved, adapted to lessons learned in blood. The veteran Fabri leads the repair work with particular intensity. The stones that were displaced are replaced, but he also examines the wall for other potential weaknesses. Here, where mortar has eroded slightly. There, where a foundation stone shows hairline cracks. He marks each issue for attention. The The wall is not a static creation, but a living structure that requires constant care. This attack has proven that inadequate work means dead soldiers. The weight of that knowledge settles on him like a physical burden. The young surveyor, who observed the battle from a distance, experiences revelation of a different kind. The wall he helped calculate is not abstract mathematics. It is the difference between life and death. The precision he obsessed over, the gradients he checked repeatedly, the measurements he verified until others thought him mad, all of it matters because men will die if the engineering fails. Theory has become desperately, urgently practical. The repairs are completed within a week, and improvements added based on combat experience. Gates are reinforced. Artillery positions are established at key points along the wall. The garrison rotations are adjusted to maintain higher alertness. The wall learns from its first battle and becomes stronger. Through the summer, construction continues with renewed urgency. Every incomplete section is a vulnerability. Every unfinished mile castle is a potential breach point. The legionaries work with the knowledge that they are not just building for future generations, but for their own survival. The wall must be completed, and it must be perfect, because imperfection kills. But perfection requires resources, and by autumn, a crisis emerges that threatens everything they have built. The quarries are running low on quality stone. The easily accessible deposits are exhausted. Deeper cutting is required, slower and more dangerous. The supply chain that fed construction so reliably begins to falter. Stones arrive irregularly, in insufficient quantities, sometimes of inferior quality. The engineers face impossible mathematics: insufficient stone to complete the wall to specifications, insufficient time to develop new quarries, insufficient alternatives except the one they all resist: compromise. The chief architectus calls another conference, this time with centurions included alongside engineers. The situation is laid out with brutal honesty. They can complete the wall on schedule using turf for significant sections to be replaced with stone later. Or they can delay completion while establishing new stone sources, leaving the frontier vulnerable. Or they can compromise specifications using smaller stones, thinner walls, accepting lesser quality. The debate is intense. Some argue for delay, that proper construction justifies extended timeline. Others argue for turf sections, maintaining function while planning eventual upgrade. The chief architectus listens to all positions, his face revealing nothing. Finally, he speaks. "We will use turf where necessary, but we will not reduce stone specifications where stone is used. A thin stone wall is a weak wall. Better honest turf than dishonest stone. And we will establish protocols for eventual replacement. This is not abandoning standards. This is acknowledging reality while maintaining principles." The decision is made. Construction continues with mixed methods: stone where possible, turf where necessary, all of it built to the highest standards the materials allow. The wall will be functional, defensible, and honest. It will also be incomplete by the original vision, a compromise with reality that the chief architectus finds both necessary and bitter. Winter arrives again, the second winter of construction, and the legions face it with experience earned at cost. They know the methods now, the adaptations that allow work to continue. The death toll is lower this second winter. The efficiency is higher, but the cumulative exhaustion is deeper. Men who were young and strong 2 years ago are worn thin, aged beyond their years, marked by labor and cold and loss. The veteran Fabry feels it in his joints, the ache that never fully leaves, the stiffness each morning that takes longer to work out. He's approaching 40, old for this work, and his body reminds him constantly, but his hands remain steady, his eye remains true. He can still cut stone to tolerances younger men cannot match. Pride sustains him when strength falters. The common legionary, now in his 6th year of service, no longer remembers clearly who he was before the wall. The farm in Hispania is a dream of someone else's life. This is his reality, stone and cold and the men beside him. When he allows himself to think of the future, he imagines citizenship, discharge, a plot of land somewhere. But mostly he does not think forward. He thinks of the next stone and the one after that. As winter deepens and the year 125 turns to 126, the wall approaches completion. Not the perfect, fully stone wall originally envisioned, but a functional, defensible frontier that achieves Hadrian's core purpose. It divides the world, it marks Rome's limit, it stands. Spring arrives in the year 126 with unusual gentleness. The wind carries warmth from the south, snowmelt feeds streams that run clear and cold, and the light lingers longer each evening. Along the damaged section near Bana, legionaries work with focused intensity. The stone displaced during the Iuut Caledonian raid must be reset, and not merely replaced, but improved. Every lesson learned in blood must be written into the wall itself. The veteran Fabri oversees the work with hands that have shaped thousands of stones across 4 years. Each stone removed for replacement is examined, its failure studied. Here, the mortar was slightly too wet, allowing movement under stress. There, the foundation beneath showed compression, infinitesimal but real. He marks each lesson mentally, teaching as he works. The younger masons watch his hands, learning that repair is instruction, that failure examined becomes wisdom. The damaged gate is rebuilt stronger, reinforced with iron bands forged in the fort workshops. Artillery positions are carved into the ramparts, permanent emplacements for the ballistae that can sweep the approaches with killing precision. The wall is not simply restored, it evolves. This is Roman military engineering, not rigid replication, but continuous improvement informed by experience. The chief architectus walks the repaired section when the work is complete. His hands, scarred from decades of labor and command, run over the stones. The joints are perfect, less than 3 millimeters, tight enough that his fingernail cannot find purchase. The height is exact to specification. The stonework is flawless. He nods once, the only praise he offers, but the workers understand. They have met his standard, which is the only standard that matters. By summer, the wall approaches its final form, 73 miles from Wallsend on the Tyne to Bonus on Solway on the Irish Sea. Stone for the majority of its length, turf for sections where stone was unavailable but with foundations prepared for eventual replacement. 15 feet high along most of its run, with sections following the dramatic windsill cliffs rising even higher on the natural escarpment. Mile castles every Roman mile, 80 of them, each capable of housing a garrison of 30 men. Turrets every third of a mile between the mile castles, 160 of them, providing continuous observation. 17 major forts at strategic intervals, the military way running the entire length behind the wall, enabling rapid communication and supply. The Vallum ditch system to the south, marking the military zone. Not a single wall, but an integrated system of control and defense. The numbers are staggering when assembled. Approximately 24 million stones quarried, dressed, transported, and set. 300,000 cubic meters of material moved. 15,000 men laboring for 6 years. The scale defeats comprehension, yet the wall stands as proof that scale can be managed, that the impossible becomes possible through organization, discipline, and uncompromising standards. On a morning in late summer, the chief architectus stands at the eastern terminus at Wallsend, looking west along the wall's length. From here, it marches across the landscape, rising and falling with the Edos terrain but maintaining its essential straightness, its geometric certainty. He thinks of the decisions made, the compromises accepted, the standards maintained despite everything. His name will not survive. The scrolls of calculations will decay. But the wall will stand, and it will speak for him louder than any inscription. He thinks of the men who died building it. The exact count is recorded in documents that will be lost, but he remembers. 47 dead from accidents, falls from scaffolding, stones that slipped, collapses of temporary structures, 63 from illness, mostly in the first winter before they learned the adaptations that made survival possible. 12 killed in the Caledonian raid and subsequent skirmishes. 122 lives, each one a weight he carries. Were they justified? He does not know. He knows only that the wall stands and that it will save lives in the future, more lives than it cost. That must be sufficient. The common legionary, now a veteran approaching the end of his service term, places what he believes will be his final stone on a section near Vindolanda. The stone, fits perfectly into its designated space, settling with a sound of completion. He steps back, wiping stone dust from his hands for the 10,000th time. His hands are destroyed, calloused until they barely feel, scarred from countless small injuries. His back is permanently bent from years of lifting. He's 28 years old and feels 60, but he has helped build something that will outlast kingdoms. That evening, he sits with his century, men who have become closer than brothers through shared suffering. They speak little, comfortable in silence, passing a wineskin, watching the sunset paint the wall gold and red. Tomorrow there will be more work, always more work, maintenance and improvement and adaptation. But tonight they rest, and they know what they have accomplished. The veteran Fabry completes his last carved stone on a September afternoon. It is for a repair section, replacing a block that showed stress fractures. He has worked on this single stone for 3 days, shaping it with a precision that borders on obsession. Every surface is exactly flat. Every angle is exact. The stone is mathematically perfect, as close to ideal as human hands can achieve. He sets it in place himself, checking it with his labella, his plumb line, his straight edge. It sits perfectly level, perfectly aligned, perfectly fitted. He does not mark it, does not sign it, does not indicate that this stone represents the culmination of his craft. The stone itself is signature enough. Some future mason, he thinks, will see this stone and know that whoever cut it understood what perfection means. That is legacy sufficient. The young surveyor, no longer quite so young after 6 years on the frontier, compiles his final measurements into a comprehensive survey. The numbers fill scroll after scroll, a complete technical record of the wall's construction. Gradients, dimensions, material quantities, construction methods, all recorded with the precision that has become his defining characteristic. The scrolls will be archived, will survive for a time, will eventually be lost. But while they exist, they prove that the wall was built not by magic or brute force, but by careful mathematics and systematic planning. He includes a section, unusual in military records, about failures and adaptations. He documents the winter construction challenges, the stone shortage crisis, the combat damage and repairs. He believes that future engineers should learn from both successes and struggles. Knowledge, he has learned, comes more from solving problems than from perfect execution. The wall stands because they adapted, not because they followed a flawless plan. In autumn of 126, official word arrives. The wall is declared complete. There will be maintenance, always maintenance, and continuing work on replacement of turf sections and improvement of facilities. But the essential structure is finished. 6 years, as Hadrian ordered, 73 miles, as he specified. The frontier is secured. The legions hold no great celebration. There are ceremonies, speeches from officers, extra rations and wine. But the soldiers themselves mark the completion quietly, each man in his own way. Some write letters home, describing what they have built. Some simply sleep, exhausted beyond ceremony. Some walk the wall one more time, touching stones they placed, knowing their anonymous labor has created something permanent. The chief architectus submits his final report to Rome. It is technical, detailed, honest about both achievements and compromises. He does not exaggerate or minimize. The wall stands as its own testament. His report simply documents what was done, how it was done, and what it cost. He includes casualty figures, material expenditures, timeline adherence, strategic assessment. It is the work of a lifetime compressed into precise Latin prose that reveals nothing of his soul. That night, he stands alone on the ramparts at Housesteads, the fort that has become his headquarters. The northern darkness is complete, starless, the kind of darkness that feels eternal. But the wall beneath his feet is solid, precisely engineered, built to standards that will endure centuries. He has given 6 years to this project, the best years of his life, and he will likely never receive significant recognition. His name will fade while the wall persists. The thought brings unexpected peace. Years pass. The wall becomes ordinary, a permanent feature of the landscape, as much a part of northern Britannia as the hills it crosses. Soldiers garrison it, walk its length on patrol, watch the northern approaches for threats that sometimes come and sometimes do not. Traders establish towns in its shadow. Children grow up knowing no world without it. The wall is simply there, doing its work, dividing the frontier with geometric certainty. Decades pass. Generations of soldiers serve and retire. The legions rotate, new men arriving from across the empire to walk the same stones, sleep in the same forts, perform the same duties. The original builders age and die, their names unrecorded, their faces forgotten, but their work remains. The stones they fitted with such care continue to fit. The foundations they laid continue to hold. The wall stands, centuries pass. Rome itself changes, rises to heights and begins the long decline. The wall outlasts emperors, outlasts dynasties, outlasts the very idea of empire that created it. Local Britons take stones for building, sections collapse from lack of maintenance, but the essential structure persists, too massive, too well built to disappear. The precision of its construction ensures that even in ruin, it remains recognizable, its purpose clear. In the summer of 1936, Major James Gillam of the British Royal Engineers arrives at Housestead's fort with a survey team. They have been assigned to conduct detailed topographic mapping of the wall for military training purposes. The work is routine, expected to produce nothing remarkable. Ancient ruins are scattered across Britain. The wall is simply another. But as the survey proceeds, as modern theodolites and optical levels measure what Roman gromus and chorobates once measured, the engineers begin to realize something extraordinary. The measurements are too precise. The gradients are calculated to fractions of a degree. The foundations are perfectly matched to soil types that vary along the route. The spacing of the mile castles shows less than 1% variation across 73 miles. This degree of precision should be impossible without modern instruments. Major Gillam stands at a completed section, his survey equipment beside him, his calculations scattered across a field table. He has measured and remeasured, checked and rechecked, unable to believe his own data. The wall maintains a consistent gradient for water drainage across miles of varied terrain. How? The Romans had no optical instruments, no precision measuring devices, nothing but string and geometry and human skill. Yet they achieved what his team struggles to match with modern technology. That evening, he writes in his field journal, the entry that will be preserved in English heritage archives. The precision is extraordinary. These Romans achieved with groma and string what we struggle to match with optical instruments. How did they do it? The question is genuine, professional, humbled. An engineer recognizing excellence across the centuries, paying respect to predecessors who solved impossible problems with inadequate tools and unlimited dedication. The survey team spends weeks along the wall, documenting what they find. The joint tolerances averaging less than 3 millimeters, the perfectly calculated curves following the natural escarpment of the wind sill. The drainage. Systems that still function after 1,800 years. The engineering decisions that prove deep understanding of geology, hydrology, structural mechanics, all encoded in stone by men who had no formal scientific framework, but understood their materials with intimate precision. One engineer, examining a section near Vindolanda, finds a stone that is perfect in every dimension. Not approximately perfect, actually perfect within the limits of their measuring capability. Some anonymous Roman mason, shaped this stone with absolute precision and set it where it would be seen by no one, buried in the core of the wall. The engineer is moved in a way he does not entirely understand. This stone represents something beyond function, beyond duty. It represents pride in craft, commitment to excellence even in obscurity, the artist's soul in the builder's hands. The survey team completes their work and files reports that become part of the historical record. Their findings contribute to growing appreciation of Roman engineering capabilities. But more than technical data, their work represents a conversation across time. Modern engineers reaching back to touch the minds of ancient builders, recognizing kinship in the shared language of precision and problem solving. In the decades following, archaeological work intensifies at Hadrian's Wall. Teams led by scholars like Robin Burley excavate the forts, particularly Vindolanda, uncovering extraordinary evidence of daily life. The Vindolanda tablets, Thin wooden postcards preserved in anaerobic mud reveal the human side of the wall's story. Birthday party invitations, requests for warm socks, complaints about the weather, shopping lists, personal letters. The men who built with such precision also lived ordinary lives, missed home, celebrated small joys, endured tedium and cold. One tablet, dated to the early years of construction, is a letter from a soldier to his family. The Latin is simple, the handwriting rough. We work on the wall each day. The stone is heavy and the weather cold. But the work is good. Tell Marcus I think of him. I will return when my service ends. The letter was never sent, perhaps because the soldier died before he could dispatch it, perhaps because he simply forgot it. It survives as testament that behind the engineering marvel were individual men with individual hopes. The wall continues to teach. Modern civil engineering students study Roman construction techniques, amazed by the efficiency of their methods, the use of standardized measurements to enable mass production, the organization of labor into specialized teams, the quality control systems that maintain standards across vast distances. The wall is not just history. It is textbook, demonstration, proof that excellence is achievable through discipline and systematic thinking. In the present day, hundreds of thousands visit Hadrian's Wall each year. They walk its length, touch its stones, stand on its ramparts, looking north as Roman soldiers did 2 millennia ago. Some come for history, some for hiking, some for reasons they could not fully articulate, but all encounter the same fundamental truth. The wall stands. After empires rose and fell, after languages changed and cultures transformed, after everything that seemed permanent proved temporary, the wall remains. A young engineering student from London stands at Housestead's Fort on a summer afternoon, running her hand over stones fitted with 3mm joints. She has studied the mathematics, understands the principles, knows theoretically how it was done. But standing here, touching the actual stones, she experiences something beyond theory. She feels connection across time to the engineers who solved these problems first, who created solutions from first principles, who built not just for their moment, but for eternity. An elderly veteran, grandfather who served in the Second World War, walks the wall with his grandson. He explains about fortifications, about defense in depth, about the military thinking that created this frontier. But mostly he talks about the men who built it, soldiers like he was, far from home, doing difficult work in hard conditions because that is what soldiers do. The boy listens and perhaps understands a little, and perhaps will remember this day when he is old himself. The wall in the present is both monument and living landscape. Sheep graze beside it, hikers camp in its shadow, birds nest in gaps between stones. It has become part of the natural world, even while remaining utterly artificial, human will made permanent in stone. In some sections it stands nearly to original height, dramatic and imposing. In others it has been reduced to foundations, ghostly lines in the turf. But even as fragments, it retains power, presence, meaning. The chief architectus could not have imagined 1936, could not have conceived of theodolites or field journals or engineering students in the 21st century. But he would understand the respect his work receives. He would recognize the professional kinship in Major Gillam's question. He would know that the precision he demanded, the standards he maintained despite winter and death and impossible logistics, have justified themselves across centuries. The wall speaks for him, louder and clearer than any words could. The veteran Fabri's perfect stone remains in the wall, unmarked and anonymous, known only to itself. But it is perfect still, and that is signature sufficient. Future masons, studying Roman technique, examine such stones with reverence, knowing that whoever shaped them understood something essential about craft and dedication and the pursuit of excellence for its own sake. The young surveyor's scrolls are lost, dust centuries ago. But his measurements live in the stones they described, in the gradients that still drain water correctly, in the foundations that still distribute weight properly, in the systematic thinking that transformed imperial vision into physical reality. His knowledge survives not in words, but in executed precision. The common legionary's name is forgotten, but his labor is visible in every stone. Anonymous hands multiplied by thousands, sustained effort across years, ordinary men achieving extraordinary things through collective discipline and shared purpose. The wall is their monument, more permanent than bronze, more lasting than marble inscriptions that name generals and emperors while forgetting the men who actually built. Hadrian's Wall was granted UNESCO World Heritage status in 1987, recognized as possessing outstanding universal value. The designation acknowledges not just historical importance, but the engineering achievement itself, the demonstration that human beings, properly organized and committed to excellence, can accomplish works that transcend their lifetimes. The wall is not just Britain's heritage, it belongs to the species, proof of what we can do when we refuse to compromise on precision, when we maintain standards despite hardship, when we build not for the moment, but for eternity. The wall still stands. After empires, after languages, after everything that seemed permanent proved temporary. The stones fitted by exhausted hands in brutal cold remain fitted. The foundations laid with mathematical precision remain sound. The survey lines run true. This is the legacy of nameless engineers and anonymous masons, of common soldiers who became builders, of men who found meaning in precision and purpose in construction. Nearly 2,000 years separate the Roman engineers from the British survey team, yet they speak the same language, the language of measurement and mathematics, of problem solving and precision. Excellence transcends time. Quality endures. The wall stands as conversation across centuries, ancient voices speaking to modern listeners through the medium of perfectly fitted stone. The chief architectus gave 6 years of his life to the wall, the veteran Fabri his craft, the young surveyor his intellect, the common legionary his body. All of them gave something essential, poured themselves into stone and mortar, and in doing so achieved the only immortality available to mortals. Their work outlives them. The wall stands. This is Hadrian's Wall. 73 miles of precisely engineered frontier, built by 15,000 men who are dust, standing as testament that human beings, properly dedicated, can create permanence in a temporary world. The precision that shocked British engineers in 1936 continues to amaze visitors today. How did they do it? The answer lies in the stones themselves. Through discipline and skill, through systematic organization and uncompromising standards, through refusing to surrender quality despite exhaustion and cold and death, they built something that would speak for them across all the centuries to follow. They built a wall that divides earth from sky, past from future, the temporary from the eternal. They built precisely, and their precision echoes through time, clear and certain as the stones themselves, teaching still, inspiring still, proving that excellence once achieved never dies. The wall stands and in standing honors every nameless hand that shaped its stones.